Hi everyone, Daniela here. I'm here to do the A to Z of medical quackery. As I said before, I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner in the process of writing a series of books about a family of nurses throughout different wars, and I've come across medical quackery while doing that research for these books. And I do love history and I do love medicine, and so I figured why not go through this journey together and discover some of the medical quackery. So, we start with our letter A. We have some arsenic that we're going to talk about. So, arsenic, the earliest known usage was in ancient times. So, the derivative of the word, the Persian and Syriac words were zarnik, and then Greek was arsenikon, which came to be roughly translated as potent. And so we go through Latin, the arsenicum, and then arsenic in French, and which is where we get arsenic today, and the word that we know it is today. So, ancient times it was used pretty much as an empiric and potent medical agent. Earliest usage dating back and on record to 2000 BC. Mostly it wasn't technically identified, but it was arsenic containing materials. And then around 1250 AD, elemental arsenic was discovered or identified, not discovered, but identified by German alchemist Albertus Magnus. So if we rewind back to the ancient times, Hippocrates often would use arsenic and lauded arsenic containing materials as a cure for things such as skin cancer, and then leading to the times in Roman times of Pliny the Elder's use. But even before then and after then, Chinese medicine would use it and documented it as a very important medical agent for Chinese medicine. And then we go to the 1400s, where Paracelsus, a Swiss physician, alchemist, and chemist, basically an all-around Renaissance man, advocated for the use of arsenic in medicine when he emphasized that the dosage would make the difference. So that's the important thing here, is we need to know that everything can be toxic. It depends on the dosage that you're getting. So he basically gave that foundation for toxicology. So we fast forward through the ancient times and think about its medical use. So around the 17th century, they started using Fowler's solution, which was sold as a generic drug to cure anything from remittent fevers and headaches, to also helping with tumors. And hold on to that thought. So in the 1800s, it was then utilized to treat a parasitic-induced sleeping sickness, which was trypanosomiasis, and they used the atoxyl, which was the arsenic drug that they used. By the 1900s, it was considered a magic cure-all for everything from the cancers we talked about to syphilis, and then enter in the use for chemotherapy. So by the 1970s, they had started to more utilize arsenic in chemotherapeutic agents. And so they would use arsenic trioxide, and that was shown, again, in the 1970s to help dramatically increase remission in patients with acute pyelomyelitic leukemia. And so that showed quite great success, and by that time, by about 2003, give or take, they had FDA approval to use that as a chemotherapeutic agent. Before then, it had been used for antibiotics and everything, so the use of it for anything other than the chemotherapeutic agents, it pretty much stopped being used because of that increased effect of toxicology and everything. And so we think about how it could be used and how important it is to be used with certain things like that, but the dosage and the side effects, you have to think risk versus benefit. And so we really need to move on from that use and find other uses. It's not to say that they don't use that. Small doses in a very controlled, administered setting. It's important for science to make sure that everything's in a controlled and properly vetted setting, because people will just use it, and that's where the quackiness comes in. So, again, I want to keep this in mind for everything we talk about from here on out. Everything and every amount, dosage otherwise, how much you take will depend on how toxic something becomes. So, when we get into quackery, we have to think about, is it quacky or is it just malicious? So, first we think about the malice that was used with arsenic. So, many of you already know that arsenic was used as a poison. It is a silent poison, and that was often used throughout medieval Renaissance Europe. Especially, it was known as the killer of kings. So it was used to kill kings, emperors, cardinals, anyone who was deemed rich, or if they wanted to get rid of somebody. Nero, the Emperor Nero, famously used arsenic to poison his stepbrother Tiberius Britannicus, which led him to get the successfully secure his spot as the Emperor of Rome. It also was commonplace for arsenic to be used by noisy neighbors. And in 17th century France, it was called the poudre de succession, which was also known as the inheritance powder. So if you wanted to get rid of somebody, you'd use arsenic. It wasn't until the 18th century when James Marsh, and then later the Swedish scientist Jakob Berzelius, again I apologize for butchering that, created a method which was now known as the Marsh-Berzelius test to detect levels of arsenic post-mortem. And so they stopped using that as a way to the people. So when we think about it now, let's get into the quacky part. So in the 19th century, arsenic was considered to be a great thing for makeup. So one of the big things, and I found this out while reading Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green, great book, it was chic to look consumptive. And so when they wanted to achieve that consumptive glow, they would buy arsenic powder because it would help them create this pale translucency. And then they'd also use a Fowler solution to give their cheeks a rosy glow, which helped do that by damaging the capillaries. So you can see what happened with that. So in this ad, you can see the arsenic complexion. They'd sell arsenic wafers. They were considered safe. They were considered safe for nibbling. Most contained lead, so they really weren't safe for nibbling. But that pale translucent skin was very important for the Victorian times. But when that was used, it led to some serious health complications, including organ damage, so really bad kidney damage, hair loss, and then, as you guessed it, it was fatal because they were administering too high of doses. So you have to think about what things are being used and the dosage that it's being used for. And it also was said to take away beauty marks and enhance beauty. So basically, they were poisoning themselves to achieve this consumptive, beautiful glow. And that's where the medical quackery comes in. And so we want to think about things. We think about what the benefits are and how things can become quacky and used in a manner that can end up with somebody not being alive anymore. I hope this was informative, and I can't wait to do another one. Thanks. Bye.